All right, good people, welcome back for another recap review show here at Big Gold Belt Media as we're ready to jump into episode 9 of season 3 of Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, where this episode is titled Home to Roost, written by Kevin Fox, directed by Monty DeGraff. Is your boy Niger alongside of Uncle Lou. Uncle Lou, how you doing today?
Man, listen. Full transparency, it's real late. And I'm up this joint. I done mix 2 energy drinks together like it's a drink since I'm not drinking at this present time. So we gonna, when this energy kick in, this shit, it's gonna go haywire. I'm telling you.
Man, oh man, oh man. Well, listen, as always, I'm gonna kick it off to you to let you do what you do best. But before we get into it, because I'm starting to show off today, so y'all must want to know why. 2 announcements. That's what I have to talk. Got the announcements going on here. First off, episode 10. If you know, you know. But all I'm gonna say is we'll be live next week for our finale. The other announcement is also too that there will be an abundance of interviews coming for next week. I'm not going to give any clues as to what, but I'm just going to say that there will be an abundance of interviews coming. And pertaining to what happened in this episode, it just makes sense as to why we want to go in that direction with those interviews. Nonetheless, yep. So episode 10, tap in with us live, which means you can join in on the chat, be a part of that discussion for the finale episode for episode 10. And then we got interviews on the way. And then we're back to work because BMF is being loaded up as we speak. So be prepared for the full-blown coverage of this upcoming season, including interviews, including recaps, the usual here from your team at Big Gold Belt Media. If you guys are inquiring about Lucas graphic tees, we don't have an answer yet. But hopefully we do very, very soon.
Hopefully we do before BMF starts with a promo code or something of that nature. It's clearly, if I could get a deal and not have to buy t-shirts constantly, it will be a blessing.
Yeah. But as always, we truly appreciate everybody's love and support each and every week. You all have some very insightful and thoughtful comments. You all have some very funny yet hilarious comments. And then there's also those other ones that we just going to say, we see you. Nonetheless, I'm going to be done talking.
That's it.
Lou, yes, that's it. Lou, how about as we did last week? Let's kick it off with the biggest, the most controversial, or yet that moment that you know the internet is going to be talking about this week in episode 9. So what's it going to be, brother?
Hey, and for this moment, I thought the obvious moment for everybody, and that is, I'm calling it the long ride home, as we get the siblings all together in the car, and we get to see Lou fully break down and then accept anything that's going to happen next. So I'm asking you and the audience here.
Yep.
In this scene, in this setup, what do you all think is going to be Lou's fate? And did y'all notice that technically the place they drove by with Lou is kind of very reminiscent of the place that Ronnie dumped Unique's body? It's going to ask those 2 things.
Oh, didn't even think of that. But you know what? I'm going to tell you right now. I do not think that Lou has met his fate. And there is a lot of speculation in terms of the finale being explosive. I'm not going to give any clues why, but I'm just going to say there's the utmost means that the finale is going to be insane. So considering this cliffhanger, it could point to Lou's demise. But I say there's clues on the opposite end that Rock, even as shady, as bossy, as cold as she has been to him, she made it very clear to Howard that these are her brothers. We're not giving up Marvin. And I know that although she did not verbalize the doings of Lou, she's going to protect her brother. Lou is going to a place way worse than death right now. Baltimore, Maryland. He will be seeing Symphony the same likings, the same handlings as Kanan when he had to go. They had to make a move. I think he's going to go there, end up in Virginia Beach, maybe. Who knows? But nonetheless, I think she's going to take care of her brother in a way to disappear him, not off him. But I just want to give a shout out to the three of them and the tremendous acting in this, because this scene feels as intense as any. Bettina, we can't say enough. London, also can't say enough. But Malcolm, I think, is the one who don't get the flowers.
And my God, and this scene here is powerful. Just a full breakdown that he gives you, and is him begging for his life, and then him coming to acceptance. I don't think people understand the quality of acting it takes to pull off that scene, because I gotta make you fully believe that I am terrified of what's going to happen to me, and then you have to, on the reverse of that, believe that I've accepted whatever's going to happen to me. That scene, that, like, this is possibly the best performance I've seen Malcolm have in the last 2 years on this show. Like, this is back to season 1, Lou, where we saw that conflict of, am I killer or do I want to be something different? And here's the same exact thing. Like, am I someone who am I accepting the fate that my brother, the people who I love the most, his begging of his big brother over and over again here really shows you. And then London plays it perfectly by not breaking. It ain't a situation. It feels like Marvin is a stone cold killer in this scene here. And I think that's what works wonders here. My only issue is, and you brought it up, if they take him to Baltimore or Virginia Beach, we already know there's no such thing as rehab in Baltimore. Everybody's on track, or everybody's on crack. So, like, if that's the case, like, you're not like getting away from drugs in Baltimore. They get them Jones out to schools and everything. Like, so you're gonna be hooked on drugs forever. If he goes to Virginia Beach, it's almost the same exact thing. I mean, they still have their aunt down there, right? Isn't their aunt that Kanan went with down there?
Yeah, and I get you, because I mean I didn't go that far. So the couple of other little things I'm kind of putting together is that I don't think a major death of a major character is happening in the beginning of an episode, and if not, it's just not happening. Because if you think about Burke, it was at the end of the episode. It'd be a disservice for Lou Malcolm Mays to be killed off in the beginning of the finale, and the fact that we didn't have him killed in the 9th episode, which means that there's no way that they're going to extend this car ride of our 3 main characters for the entire episode towards the end. It's just not happening. So the math ain't really mapping for me in this one. But yeah, in the sense of what's going to happen, I guess I could say my lack of knowledge and yet experience with somebody in their sorority, I do know by narration of 50 Cent and also just by events, is that when you do hit rock bottom, or when folks are faced with a life and death situations, the truth, the resolve, the whatever tends to come out. Could this be enough to make them snap out of sobriety? I'm not confidently here to say yes, but could it be the means of the beginning of the rehabilitation, or could this be a little bit of both? Could this be a little bit of Rock saying, I need to get rid of him, but yet her trusting Marvin by saying he needs love, he needs support? Do they check him into something in order for him to get that? I'm thinking that the siblings are now on the same page, and that they have compromised on the solution on how to handle Lou. One other thing I will say is that in talking to Malcolm, and not just us, but other folks asking about the indications as to where will Lou be in the future. We don't know where Lou's at. Malcolm had mentioned that he would like Lou to still be around, so that there's a possibility, et cetera. Of course he would. He's been a very vital part to the success of this show. Could he be written off for some time, and could they eventually have him return? Is this a way of just ultimately writing him off without killing him? Which is also something, as a fan, I'm willing to make peace with. Could he pop up at a different iteration or a different spinoff within this same time period? Is there means of them handling that? So there's a lot of little things that I think we could be leading into, that this ultimately does not mean that Lou is dead. It just means that he's gone for the time being. So I'm feeling confident in terms of what's gonna be revealed with this come the finale episode.
Yeah, because you can't expect Lou to get healthy and better still staying in that same environment.
Yeah,
like rehab in your same environment fixes nothing, because when you leave, you're coming right back to the same situation. So this could just be a situation where I do believe that they felt like, hey, one, we need to get you out of New York and get you help. So if we could do both and just let you go somewhere where you can deal with your demons, deal with your guilt, because that's the one thing Lou still has not done yet. So if we could deal with your guilt, deal with your addiction, and have you away from this, maybe you'll get better. And maybe it's a way to have Lou be off on the show for a while, because like, you can't be around this game. You're not built for this anymore.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not built for it, we don't want to put you in a situation where you completely break. Because in the end, Marvin looked like he wanted to kill Lou, but Marvin's mad already, and we know that. Like,
yeah, and I didn't
Marvin's
get that.
mad. That's the impression. I mean, the mad impression. Like, Marvin is stone faced. When Lou is begging Marvin, you don't like Marvin is stone faced.
He did say he loved him.
Yeah, but I mean, Michael kissed Fredo before he killed him. So I mean, that means absolutely nothing to say I love you.
This is true.
It's Rock's face that I paid the most attention to. Her face was not a sense of I want to get rid of Lou. Her face was a concern, look for Lou, because you see her through the rear view looking back at Marvin and then looking at Lou. But it was not a situation where she's looking at like, we got to get rid of him. It's more of possibly I didn't know it was this bad for him.
Yeah. And Patina and Rock has sort of mentioned throughout this episode about how her focus has been about Kanan and not everything around her. You know, her conversation with Juke is like, every time I talk to you, it's about Kanan. For this moment, let it just be about you. It's the first time Juke has also called her Aunt Rock, which is establishing that there may be a lack of presence from Rock from an emotional standpoint that also caters to your notion of, has she just been here but not really present in terms of what's actually happening with Lou? So I'm intrigued. And now I hopefully by the end of this, before the end of our recap tonight, we make some predictions, because that's one of my predictions, but we make some finale predictions going forward. Hey, somebody in the comments last week said that burnt toast helps with hangovers. I'm sorry, before I even ask you, folks, get in the comments right now, because I've been drinking. Not tonight, but I've been drinking for some time. I did one of those. I just posted the whole post when you're 21 picture on Instagram. And I had a full loco on my hand. So I just tell you, I done the marathon. That's the OG for loco.
You didn't even love yourself when you was 21. Well, I can't
not
say
at all.
That, Joe. Back when I was 21,
it
was, it's a
Mad
different
Dog,
time period. For loco.
Disco.
No.
E&J, all bad mistakes.
All
bad
All
mistakes.
E&J.
All bad
E&J
mistakes.
mixed with Corton's Negro, the cheapest champagne. You mix both of them two together.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Bad mistakes.
And that's around when 211 came out.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah. Yes. Everybody made bad
itch like
mistakes.
hell trying to drink a 211, Joe.
So the point I'm making is that we done been around the block, and burnt toast definitely comes very handy, very accessibly for folks. I have never in my life heard somebody say, yeah, bro, you trying to get over this hangover? Go ahead and cop this burnt toast. Y'all gonna have to tell me something I missed in life, because I ain't never heard this life hack.
Like, what potassium is in burnt toast? Because that's normally what helps you with a hangover.
And this is justification of Mrs. Thomas giving Lou the burnt toast to help him for his hangover.
Nah, Joe, we ain't gonna say that. She burnt the motherfucking toast, Joe. Burnt toast does not cure hangover. I ain't never heard no sick shit. What type of struggle repair hangover meal is that? I know bananas because potassium, Gatorade, definitely Pedialyte. But when I was younger, it was, hey, drink a cold beer. Nah, drink a cold beer. That's all I was told. And I was told this by old heads. Drink a cold beer because you got to keep on drinking to get through the hangover, which now sounds nuts. But it was, keep on drinking. Wean yourself away from alcohol. So you just drink a couple of beers and then you eventually feel a little better. And you're like, oh, okay, this works. Like, but not burnt toast. That's poor people's shit there.
Also, because apparently I need to learn how to pronounce things correctly. So, Godfather of Harlem. Anyway, proceed to our next stage.
Wow. So we'll go back to hold up. Speaking of that, I know somebody I said Queen Bee and they said, I know you're not disrespecting her. And then they name her, nigga, her name is Queenie. That's why they called her Queen Bee. I'm like, oh, are we serious here? But that's cool. I digress. Let's get back to the beginning of this episode. And the episode starts off with, again, our reckless Lou, as he is just drunk out of his mind, running into everything humanly possible. And then he robs a liquor store, which we haven't seen since the Flynn boy did this when he got head in it.
Literally about to say that. Who did it worse here? Who did it worse, Vic or Lou?
Exactly. But what did you think when the episode started off this way with Lou? What did you think was going to be the trajectory of him in this episode?
I didn't think nothing of it. I just think, honestly, I just felt they needed an opening for the episode. I mean, he's a drunk. This, to be honest, him robbing the liquor store for a bottle is not the worst of what happened. He literally was shooting his gun just randomly all over the place not that long ago. I mean, yeah, he's swerving, he's driving, he robbed the liquor store. It got word on the block. Okay, just another day of his antics, if you ask me. So I really didn't think much of it.
Wow. Okay, yeah. I kind of thought it would be a consequence for it, just because you can't just rob someone and not think something's going to happen because of it. It was just waiting to see what that consequence was going to be for Lou, because that's just, I think they wanted to show off just by showing the reckless state that he was in.
So wait. So my question is, because of the consequences, and we heard that, word got around town.
Yeah.
Is that traditionally how things happen? Like, you rob a store and all the block boys know and they care?
I mean, if you rob the store and you just out there wilding, yeah, everybody's gonna know about it, because they're gonna be like, dog, like, how bad that he robbed that man for a $10 bottle of liquor. I don't even know what bottle, even back in the 90s, what bottle of liquor worth a damn was you getting for $10 but E&J? Like, you can't rob nobody for a bottle of E&J. Like, that's crazy.
Chafers.
Oh shit. But following Lou's antics, next up was one of the moments I was thinking about picking as the biggest moment of this episode, and that is Joaquin ambushing Ronnie and Mr. Beach House mixtape himself, Ty Dolla $ign. hey, I was waiting to see what they was gonna do with Ty this episode, but here we get Joaquin finally catching up with Ronnie. And what's interesting here, what I'm going to ask you in the audience about, did you think that once we got this meeting that it would lead to Snaps and Pops saving Ronnie's life again? Because as Joaquin points out, you would be dead if your partners didn't ask me not to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, we got to continue to show their print on the business and in this area, and then they are the top of the hierarchy here. So understanding this, under everything seems to be under this jurisdiction, this only makes sense. Why it makes sense, I don't know, but because I would think that the Colombians would have some level of control themselves, since they are the major they're bringing in the product. So if they're to connect, shouldn't they be the ones making the call?
I think this felt more like them doing Snaps and Pop a favor.
Maybe.
I don't think it was a situation where they was making the call. It was more like him saying, okay, you want this? Not a problem. We won't kill him because you asked.
Yeah, and I mean, they have been very focused on their 401k, as they mentioned, their retirement plan. So they need to make sure that the funds are flowing in the way to really solidify that. So maybe that is it. But yeah, again, I just thought like, okay, cool. We're just continuing to see that their print on this territory and their influence and so on. So it's cool, it's interesting. And it seems like they have a connection to everyone.
Everybody. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing I picked up more than anything else. But they brought it up to Rock when they were pinpointing, like, where'd you get it from them? You get it from, like, they let her know, we obviously know everybody. Yeah. We're deeply connected in this game. And this was just a pull for Ronnie just to help save him, even though, again, Ronnie has become or went from being the Michael Myers of the show to being a stooge. In a sense of 3 episodes, this has happened to Ronnie, which is very weird. That now he went from being the big bad, but the moment Snaps and Pop fully show up, he's no longer remotely close to being the big bad. It is clear that they are. And this was just a show of power by them to let you know it. But next up, we get Rock setting up her business. Not much to talk about here. We know what's happening after what Marvin did to the supply shop owner in the last episode. But here we finally get to see exactly how she's going to be moving these products to make that special 25, something that everybody could get in every carry-out humanly possible. But following that scene is the meeting with Rock and Juke. This is one of the best scenes of this episode here. As Rock arrives at the diner that we have not seen his diner since, I want to say, was it Lou and Unique's encountered the diner? Was really the last time we've been to this diner with them. Yeah. And that was in season 1.
Yeah.
But here we see Rock delivering a letter to Juke that came from the military, and then them having a conversation, and Rock finally coming across as being motherly. And it's not to Kanan, but it is to Juke. What did you think about this whole conversation they had with one another? Rock reaffirming Juke, like, whatever you want to do, I'm going to support you. And I need to make sure I'm here for you and not for your cousin.
Yeah, I mean, I think one, as just fans of Juke and wanting to see her catch as many W's as possible, these moments are near and dear to the fans, and if not to everybody, certainly to us. So we appreciate her having these moments, and a lot of us can relate to these dynamics of aunt and nieces, or just mother-daughter, pseudo mother-daughter relationships. So seeing the two of them, as we want to see, although we know we're, the demise of Juke, but seeing her have these special moments is always good. And I think not only is it because of the characters, but because of the actors. And I think to have somebody positively influencing her in her life, and to focus on her and want the best for her. And as I mentioned, like, I can't recall any other time she's called her Aunt Rock, and I don't know. And even if it is a reoccurring thing, it just felt so much more important this time, because I think Juke needed it as she's trying to navigate through life. She needed somebody who was indisputably in her corner, without any bias, without trying too hard, like like Marvin, but just somebody who's just there for her as she's really getting into a part of her life where life gets really, really big. All of us had graduated high school, and we know that moment of what's next. And she needed to have somebody that was going to be in her corner, give her those sounded words of advice so she can move forward. But also too, Rock to hold herself accountable by, as I mentioned earlier, by saying, I always talk about Kanan. This time, let's just be about you and you only.
Yeah, and you just saw the look on Juke's face when she said that. It just let her know that you're equally as important to me as Kanan is. So I don't want to talk about him. I want to make sure that you're fine. And I think that's, as much as Marvin loves Juke and he's making up as much as humanly possible with her, I think Juke's relationship with Rock is always going to be a little different. As Rock is kind of the pseudo mom, because she was the woman who was in Juke's life the most. So for her to tell her at that moment, like, I'm not putting Kanan above you, I think that meant the world to Juke, because that gave her another outlet that's not Marvin. As Rock points out, if you told Marvin that you would think about going to the military, he would go off. But Rock is here like, and I'm going to support you 100%, so no matter what your decision is. That's why it was a sweet moment between them two. Next up, we get Famous at the bar. And it's not much to talk about in this scene, except for Famous is introduced to a record exec who loves his song. I don't know how this song is catching on every way humanly possible. Like, this is Streets Need a Body is a much better track than this, but I like. But here we see opportunities opening up for Famous, especially what makes this important. Only thing to talk about here. is a lot of people thought we were close to the demise of Famous, or this is a character completely going away. It looks like now we have a path that if Famous goes away, it makes perfectly good sense for him to go away.
Yeah. And I what I really got from this is that Lou is messing the bag up. Cause this is his big moment. He's not here to collect that check. So I don't know. Yeah, for Famous, I really don't have too strong of a prediction in terms of where that character is going, but they're building it up for us to be upset at some point because he's changed. He's focused on the music. He's showing up to work on time. He's still smoking jacks, but nonetheless, it seemed to be sending him in a good direction. And even to the point where, you know, to kind of think a little bit deeper in the episode, like he still shows up for Kanan, tries to be there for his homie, and you got his little stooge that you mentioned, and Ronnie always blocking the opportunities for them to communicate. And let's just call it let's just call it what it is. But Kanan's sort of acting like a coward too, because you know he's trying to act hard like that ain't his boy in front of Ronnie, but then also tries to be there for him. It's a weird balance that he's trying to establish, but it ain't cool nonetheless because it's fake and it's phony to his boy that's just coming there to just check on him instead of him, you know, telling his stooge to back down. He lets his stooge muscle him and do all that. Then he tries to step in, and it's I don't know, man. It's unnecessary flexing, if you ask me, for what's happening. So for all that, we feel sorry for Famous because he's been kicked out of his apartment. He's sort of lost his best friend. He got the music thing coming down the pipe. Lou's not there to also reap those benefits with him.
Yeah.
It's bad, man. It's bad.
I mean, the point he even went to Kanan's to ask about Lou when, I mean, we could put 1 + 1 together here. There's no way in hell Kanan would know where Lou was at. I think he just went there because that's his friend. And he's having a good moment. And he's like, man, let me try to use this excuse. And then here's this petty ass nigga who's standing in his way from him talking to Kanan. But again, it's a beautiful setup. And unfortunately for Power, whenever someone has everything happy going on for them, you kind of just wait for their downfall. You kind of wait for the bad luck to hit. But next up is just Marvin going to Lou's place. Nothing much talk here except for Lou lives in a drug den. And Marvin and the super go in there as he's just on the search to find Lou. Next up is my favorite character of Raising Kanan season 3. And it's not Captain Burke. It's Captain Baptiste. It's him. Him and Captain Burke have a conversation as Captain Baptiste tells Captain Burke, we're finally closing the case on your daughter. And then this is when he gets information from Captain Burke that, no, I don't need you to close it. We need to keep it open and actually look into things. What we're going to do here is focus on this entire storyline between them two before their meeting with Howard. What did you just think about this setup and the bits of information that it seemed like everyone should have known beforehand, but now all of it's coming out as Captain Burke has finally started believing his daughter's story?
Captain Burke is starting to finally believe his daughter's story.
Yeah, he's finally starting to believe his daughter's story about the information about Howard, about everything is now coming out to him about it, down to putting Jukebox together with the story and them getting 1 for 1. Like, wait a minute, Laverne Thomas, that's Marvin Thomas's daughter. How did we? Because as Baptiste said, how did we not put this together? It was always in front of our face.
Right. I mean, one, because Captain Baptiste refused to look at what was right in his face. He was avoiding any bit of additional bad PR or anything for internal affairs to have to continue to snoop their nose around there, because let's call it what it is. Howard and internal affairs, and him being continued to be investigated by internal affairs, makes everyone uncomfortable, but it specifically makes his boss is also going to be under the radar. So if he can make it all go, I mean, let's call it what it is. When he told Captain Burke, like, hey, this is all good, that was like news to his ears. And it had really much to do about Shannon Burke or the Burks. It was like, man, we done with this. So all this extra attention we're getting, we can now sweep this under the rug and continue to move on. But I will say that there is still a minor form of ethics with Captain Bartiz, because when and also we also should note that Patrick Burke, he as he put his foot down says, so I'm also a declarated cop. So there's a level of respect, but there's a level of there's a level of this accolades for them to know if he's saying something, you're gonna have to listen because this is a big deal. So I love how sort of just still like a moral compass with Captain Bartiz, because instead of him ultimately continue trying to deflect this, once the evidence was presented in front of him, he instantly made the call to say, we got to get the task force folks in here, and we got to look into this. So I think as a viewer, without so much of the detail, I was happy how fast this progressed with the proper evidence for them to move on with the proper cause and effect of this, instead of it just being dragged out much longer in terms of like, we already know everything as the viewers. Now that y'all know, this needs to just rapidly start to have its effects from it. So good for Patrick Burke and everything that he's been trying to accomplish. All of the blaming of himself, all of the regret, but also all of the mitigating he's been trying to do for him to be the lead for this. My only issue is, where's Adina? They built the Adina thing up to the same lights of Captain Burke that I would have thought she would have had just a little bit more to put into this. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I'm still overly not completely satisfied with how they have handled the Shannon Burke storyline this season. Like at this moment in this season, and unless there's a huge resolve or something to come next episode, which is ultimately going to have something to do with Howard, that they only addressed this for 3 episodes out of a 10 episode season of a major character.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like we can't carry this over to the next season. At that point, it's just you're just fishing for a problem, and then it would make no sense, because at that point, it's just a grieving father looking for a reason to defend his daughter instead of it being actual evidence. So we got to see how this plays out. Next up, we get the meeting between Ronnie, Snaps, and Pop. As Ronnie, and I'm gonna call it the pussification of Ronnie, continues here in this scene, as he complains to Snaps and Pop, why didn't you tell me Joaquin was coming after me to shut me down? And Snaps quickly shuts him down and says, basically, nigga, you lucky he came to us first, because if not, you would be dead. But the more interesting part about this conversation is Ronnie brings up Rock, and Snaps is very quick to tell him, she's your problem. You borrowed money from us. You need to make sure we still get paid. It almost felt like in no way did they address what Rock was doing, that Rock completely shut him down. And it kind of goes back to, I want to say, their conversation right after Rock left, when Snap said, it stopped being about Ronnie the moment she sashayed her ass in here. What did you think about this conversation between them in this scene here, and about them putting Ronnie in his place and informing him, we don't care about Rock because you owe us money?
When I heard that line, I said, that's something you would say in terms of a recap. If we had to assess the Rock problem, you would have said, this is easily not Snaps and Pop situation. This is Ronnie's all the way. Mm-hmm. You got a problem with whatever's happening, you need to fix it, because we want our money. We loaned you the money, you give us our money back. And that's how it is. It's how it is. You know, it's you know how like I'm gonna think of something that's not too bad here. I got one, but I can't avoid. I'm trying to avoid what I'm trying to use here. But nonetheless, no. If you get in a situation, matter of fact, here's the easy way. Yeah, if you loan somebody money and that person say they loan somebody else money, you could give a damn about them loaning that other person money. You better bring me my money. And that's how they looked at it and said, I don't care who robbed you. What's the delay with your employer? Bring me my money. And that's the problem what it is. So I like that. And I like that for one other reason, is because I like when our bad guys or villains in whatever it is, a Marvel movie up into some drug and gangster stuff, that the psychology and the ideology stays consistent. You cannot one moment talk about how you want to take over the world, and for whatever reason, you detour to I hate Iron Man. You need to stay on what your goal is. It bothers me so much. They establish the motivation, and then all of a sudden it ends with something completely different. So I like the fact that they have always been about their money. They have always been about their retirement. They established what their connections are, their powers. They established their working relationship with Ronnie, and has never changed. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate them holding him accountable for knowing and reminding us what the deal is. We're not equal partners. We did you a favor. Bring us our money.
Exactly. I think you put it perfectly. You need to stay consistent. It can't be like, always think of Meteor Man and the Golden Lords when they went from trying to take over the neighborhood to focusing on killing Meteor Man, and you're like, wait a minute, he can still be around and you can still take over the neighborhood. Like, you don't get so sidetracked into what someone else is doing where it defeats the purpose of your plan from the beginning. And that's what makes Snaps and Pop such interesting characters, is because they are very direct on what they want. And that 401k is highly important to them, as it should be to anybody out there. I mean, hopefully y'all are getting the lessons of how important it is to have a 401k, even if it's a fictional one that you get through drug dealing. Like, just have money set aside, because you never know what can happen here. But we already talked about the next one, and that was still the scene with Captain Baptiste and Captain Burke when he brings up Nicole's father and everything, and that's how it leads to Juke, but we already talked about that. Next up is Marvin finds out, let me say, to put this in the best way, he finds out what Lou did, and then he offered a reward. I didn't understand this fully, and I'm saying, because normally when I hear reward or I put money on somebody on the streets, normally that's to kill you. But here Marvin just puts money out on the streets for someone to find Lou.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. Instead of just saying, nigga, you work for me, go find my brother. Like, it was,
I feel you on
it
that.
was just a weird thing. The way they worded it was weird.
But also too, like, we haven't really established the folks that work for Marvin, because he's always kind of just wheelchair guy earlier, and they just kind of did their thing, and he just
where is wheelchair
he just recently acquired him. I mean, after he went and didn't snitch, he just kind of went away, you know. But we haven't really established Marvin's working folks like that very prominently in this season, so it kind of makes sense that they're kind of working ad hoc jobs. So he's like, all right, got a new duty for you all. Find my brother and I'll pay you. But yeah, you know, there could be situations, even if it was just a true organization, of saying, bring them to me, I'll handle them. Sure, the payment part still seems kind of wonky, but like, by any bit of rage and whatever, bring them to me. Well, your true Spider-Man impersonation.
I'm about to say, yep, J. Jonah Jameson. I want Spider-Man. Like, it's very simple. Bring me Spider-Man. Oh man! But next up is, again, same thing. Captain Baptiste. This is him talking with the task force to let them know about Howard and Juke's connection. This is just setting the groundwork for what happens later on that we'll get to, and that's the meeting between them and Howard, which is one of the most interesting scenes of this season. But next up is the meeting of Howard and Rock. And I'm going to say this because I told everybody humanly possible, including my partner, who didn't fully believe me when I said it, that Howard was setting up Marvin from the beginning. And in this scene, it is perfectly known as Rock asks him to help find Lou, and Howard is as shifty as humanly possible in this scene with every bit of information. So here I wanted to focus on everything involving Howard and Rock and all the conversations they had in this episode. What'd you think of, one, about the setup, two, about Howard being let it known clear that his goal was to set up Marvin so Kanan, Rock, and him could be safe, and him thinking Rock would go along with that?
Yeah, I do not know, because I you get your props about seeing this a mile ahead. And I gotta be honest, Howard does not seem convincing at all to have masterminded this. He just seems to just kind of be like, what am I going to do? Fine, okay, somebody's got to be the scapegoat, so let's make it Marvin. But this doesn't seem as strategical as we've seen other characters formulating plans, especially Rock, who we see all the time setting forth a plan that's going to make sense. He just seems to just kind of be going with the flow, but it is in true Howard Light, which we've known since season 1, episode 1, by way of Omar Epps, is that we said that this man was a narcissist. He absolutely thought that he was going to call a play and everything was just going to fall in line. He thought he had that much power over Rock to say, I know you want to protect your son. So in order for you to protect your son, you need to give up your brother. That way, this all goes away. And as Rock said, who is not an idiot, it says, you need this as much as I do, number one, and this is all our stuff. I'm not giving up my brother. And he's fine. I guess we just go with your way then, whatever. So to me, it just comes off that Howard has, and again, as a narcissist, and I'm not, this is not me profiling. This is Omar Epps telling us that this character that he's been playing is a narcissist, that he feels that he can get away with anything, that he may not be the smartest person, but because of his tenure, because of his influence, because of his connections, he feels like he can do it the way he wants to do it, and it would never come back to bite him in the ass. We're literally about to see Rome fall, episode 10, and everything around him that he thought he had in place clearly is not under his thumb the way he thought it was. So the Burke stuff is going to come back. His connection with Rock and all of them probably going to come into play. Him taking that position is all going to come into play. We're going to see the fire under his ass, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I got him definitely hitting the slammer. That's how they're handling that. Yeah. Omar ain't taking the bullet. He ain't taking he ain't getting no death scene in this. Yeah, no way.
This was the beginning of the end for him. That's all it was for me. Because at this point, he needed Rock to be in his corner. Because the moment Rock gets out of his corner, she can easily set him up. She has too much dirt on him. In the end, you are her son's father. That means she was underage when you got her pregnant. Like, it is so much ammunition she has against Howard. And he, for some odd reason, just thought, and I'm not going to say he thought, he is a narcissist, but I think he thought in a sense that he was still dealing with the little girl that he's always dealt with in Rock. Probably the one he manipulated into their situation to begin with. That power dynamic he thought he still had. And he miscalculated just how important Marvin was to her. Because it's a sense where you ever seen somebody and they shit on their family and they constantly shit on their family and you try to get involved and they quickly be like, oh, wait. Don't make me fuck you up. Like, that's still my family. I may talk shit about them, but in the end, I'm always going to choose them over you.
1000%. But at the end of the day, too, the one thing that, even with that approach, is that Howard needs to understand you are in this as well. You, as he said, you might as well be family at this point.
Yeah.
So it ain't no scapegoat in the family. We need to work and operate together as a family if we're going to figure this out. And I just don't think Howard is willing to, I'm not going to say he's willing to accept that. He just hasn't come to terms to accept that yet. And it may be too late. As you mentioned, he's way more of a liability. And Rock has way more in collateral in order to take him down than vice versa. So,
I mean, I'm just waiting for Rock to pull that card, and we'll talk about it later as part of the predictions. But next up, not a big scene, but it sets up a bigger scene later on, and this is another meetup between Gerald and Marvin as they just meet at the park. The only thing to talk about is the guilt that you see on Gerald's face as he's talking to Marvin. It is very clear. Like, he is regretting a lot of the decisions he made, as when Marvin leaves and he's just staring at his girls and looking back, you can see then it's just regret. Like, I had to do this to someone who legitimately cares about me. I think that's the only thing to talk about here.
He
Nothing
can't
else
even
really
he
talk
can't even read his scripts, man. I had a call with Juke, and you know,
Yeah.
it's just really bad. It's just really, really bad.
And the next one is just the scene we talked about already, and that's Famous going to Kanan's place looking for Lou, and he is interrupted by Ronnie again. You know who's Ronnie reminds me of in this scene? And I'm not going to get the name right, but I know you'll be able to help me out of everybody who would be. You remember when Rita Raposa was like trying to destroy the Power Rangers, and then the nigga in the silver thong came out? I forget his name. He had a silver,
Lord Zed.
There you go. He had a little, because they had him in a little silver little thong joint and a little helmet on. It made no sense that they dressed a villain that way in the
Lord
kids' cartoons
Zed.
here. But that's who Ronnie reminded me of, is Lord Zed right there.
There's
like,
apparently a kid
for no reason.
They apparently had a kid, and it's supposed to be coming very soon. Just, you know, our Power Ranger fans out there. But yeah, Lord Zed, go ahead. Where are you going at with this one?
No, it's just a point that he feels like a completely full henchman. That's the way I saw Lord Zed at the beginning. He was just her henchman to do whatever she needed to have done. And that's what it feels like Ronnie is here with Kanan. Down to the point, as you said, and we brought up earlier, when he was getting too forceful with Famous, all it took was for Kanan to say, let him go. And he did exactly what Kanan said.
I guess, and maybe, I don't know, you all let me know in the comments or whatever. Why was Kanan never fearful of Ronnie, ever? I don't understand that, because there's legitimate fear with Ronnie across everybody. Adults, other gangsters. I would even say Snaps and Pop knows he's a little unhinged. Right? They're not scared of him, but there's still like we identify him to be problematic, but we've dealt with him. So they're warm to him. But everybody else is like, man, this dude, Unique was even uneasy with him.
Yeah.
I am confused why there was never, ever a moment of hesitation with Kanan and Ronnie. He's always was very straight up with him and so on, and knowing that this dude is a ticking time bomb, and amongst other things that he's is capable of. So I'm just curious about that, you know.
Hey, maybe Kanan knows the real Ronnie, and because I'm starting to believe the audience more and more now about their little thought process of who Ronnie is, and it's kind of making more and more sense that it's a possibility that Kanan may know that Ronnie was dealing with the guy who was supposed to be his dad, and that can lead him not to fear him at all.
Okay.
Because at this point, Ronnie was still, I don't think Ronnie would assume Kanan would be Defcon's child if Ronnie was sleeping with Defcon. But it explains why Ronnie absolutely hates Rock. Like, a lot of the correlation is coming together here, but it could be leading to why Kanan has no fear of him at all.
Did you say Ronnie was sleeping with Defcon?
Yes, I'm starting to think that theory that people put together could possibly be true. Because if we need to fully explain his full hatred for a lot of anything to do with Rock. And I'm like, that could be it. Because, you know, Rock, he thought Rock took his man. I mean, we never know. I mean, I know it's a thing that's been going on or being rumored a lot about Ronnie. And at first I kind of dismissed it like, nah, that can't be true. But when you start looking at little pieces together, you're like, wait, maybe so. It could be a possibility that is actually true. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I got a theory that, let me see. I saw this theory saying, what if Shirley, who owns the bar in Raising Kanan, had an affair with Lulu's father, and Lou is the product of it?
Wait a minute.
So we're going to establish that this rumor is saying that Lulu's mixed, and then Lulu's mom has abandoned him.
But she hasn't abandoned him. She literally begs Lulu for money every opportunity.
No, that's not his. Yeah, but that's not his. That's his biological mom, because saying that Shirley at the bar is actually his real mom. I mean, y'all. We can just move to the next topic.
Yeah, that caught me off guard, completely off guard. Next up, we get everyone at Butter's performance. One, this was a whack ass song.
Where they performing at? This Landmark? This gotta be Landmark Mall.
Lennox Mall?
What? Yeah, you're right. Yep.
Or if you're from our area, this is like Landover Mall.
Landover Mall. Back in the day. Yeah.
As we get Butters full.
Nah, this Heckinger's Mall. All right, go ahead.
Oh, damn. Oh man, not much to talk about here. Again, we understand Juke's talent. It's still, I didn't like the song. It still was a great performance, but the most important part is what happens at the end of the performance. As Juke and the girls think that Pebbles is talking to a talent rep, and in turn, she's actually talking to the FBI, who at that moment, right after the performance, decides to run up on Juke. What did you think about it ending this way? And possibly giving us the out that we've been waiting for with Juke on what led her to make the decisions that we know she's going to make.
I don't know, man. I mean, listen, her being brought in for something didn't make her guilty of anything. So I hated this. And I think that they're not big. So her being questioned for this is not like a big public PR nightmare. And if Pebbles out here got a issue with her being questioned for something, I think she should have advocated a little bit more in terms of what it was and how she could support her, or even a conversation afterwards, which I hope we get. But I mean, I feel the reaction, maybe overreaction by Juke of saying, "You ruined my life. Why would I answer any of your questions?" But this truly can't be the end because she hadn't done anything wrong. Anybody could be questioned for anything that may have happened, or anybody that could be a suspect, or anybody that could have been a witness. It could be anything. It doesn't make her guilty, so it shouldn't end her career.
I mean, you are thinking this as just a very logical, smart, educated black man. That's a great comment. But back in the real world, if you are questioned by the FBI in front of whomever is going to be your employer, it's a good chance that you ain't coming back there, because they're not even looking at you being guilty or innocent. I think it was the problem of them saying the connection with your family, because then that means it's always going to be around you. And that's Juke's number one concern, was that the family could cause her a problem. And here it's pretty evident. And Pebbles' looks on her face says it all. Like, I can't have you around because of your family. It's not necessarily because of you. Clearly, they're not saying you're guilty of anything. But the point your family's involved in underhanded activities, I can't be, back in the 90s, you couldn't survive a controversy like that. Nowadays, no one cares. But back then, nah. Like, they hid that Mary J was on crack for years. Like, no one knew that her and KC was smoking pipes between singing. Like, they made sure to hide it because you couldn't have those type of controversies in the 90s. So, unfortunately, it did feel like this was going to be is the thing that's going to push Juke to make the decision to go to the military. I'm going to stay here because I want to talk about, before we get into the Marvin, Kanan, and Rock portion of after the concert, I just want to talk about the interrogation of Juke. We always talk about how smart she is. We always talk about how calculated Juke can be when she's cornered by anybody.
Situational awareness.
She gave the best interrogation. She did the opposite of the first 48 with Juke here.
I was literally about to say that.
And she clearly points out to them, one, you clearly have nothing. Because if you did, you wouldn't be talking to me. We've seen Juke hold it down over and over again. She's embarrassed every cop that she talked to. Would you just get the perception of, I can't remember the guy's name. I just call him the FBI guy, the leader of the task force. What did you glean from his reaction to Juke at that moment?
She's right. And as the great, oh man, I'm about to botch this one.
Shit.
You are who I thought you were. The NFL coach. Juke did exactly
Dennis
what we
Green?
thought she would do. Yeah, Dennis Green. There we go. Did exactly what we thought she would do. And so there was no surprise, and I love her chill demeanor. I mean, Juke's so good with this. She could have asked for the cigarette, the Coke. She could have took the McDouble. Yeah, she could take it all and still would have played it straight. Everything. They could have left out the room. She could have put her head on the table. This is a walk in the park. Hell, I see exactly why she became a Fed now, because she absolutely outworked that polygraph. Top secret clearance. What's that? Hell, she could have been an FBI agent for all we know. It the way how she operating out here. Maybe her being a cop was not her first employer.
Exactly.
So
hey, she hit him with the straight Kiki Palmer jump. And he's like, I don't know that man at all. I can walk past the street and I know. Sorry to that man.
real for real.
Oh man. But next up in that scene is the conversation, or the confrontation, I should say, between Marvin, Kanan, and Rock. As Marvin and Kanan start off by talking, and Kanan becomes Kanan the moment Rock comes around. As Rock says, hey, we're putting on something to celebrate Juke. And they have it out in a scene that I want to say was shown in a trailer at the beginning of the season that this scene was going to happen.
Yeah.
But we finally get to see it here. One, what'd you just think about the dynamic of the three? Because we see clearly here how irritated Marvin is for Kanan even coming close to talking to his sister the way he does.
Yeah.
And about Rock letting it go and Marvin not being happy about that.
Uncle Marvin became Uncle Marvin right here. He was ready to pull out that belt and get it done. I think, as we've been saying for a while, this is why Marvin is and should have been the top of the organization, because he regardless of his family or not, he don't take disrespect from nobody, and even if it's from his nephew, and he's definitely going to protect his sister. But I think his counseling has helped him to de-escalate from certain situations. His breathing exercises, as they made fun of him earlier on the episode.
In the diner scene.
But I think it's just a testament of who Marvin could be when he needs to get exposed, when he needs to turn up, but also at the same time where he needs to keep it turned down. But he wasn't, and as he should. Kanan can't be walking over everybody. Somebody got to be able to hold him accountable. And honestly, if you want to talk about a little bit of genetics here, Juke is a product of her father. So we seen Juke do it. Well, certainly she got it from somewhere. So I guess it's cool to see that duality here of the two and putting Kanan in his place. So I expect nothing less. We have not seen this yet. But it was definitely cool to see Marvin truly become.
We saw earlier this season when they were having a conversation about where Kanan was living, and Marvin was very adamant.
Oh,
You living where your mama living.
Yeah, that's right.
Kanan never talks back to Marvin. It's like he knows the one to push, and he probably like, nah, my uncle crazy. Like, I'm not even risking the opportunity. As Marvin said, boy, don't make me I still whoop your ass and pull my belt out here. Like, it goes right back to Marvin's the force.
And I guess I will say, even with that statement, it still don't feel as intense as this was. I actually thought like Marvin might put hands on this dude. He might lay some hands on that man.
It also brings up the dynamic of the siblings, because technically, I'm almost sure that Marvin was the male force in Kanan's life, as much as Rock is the female force in Juke's life. So it's a certain amount of respect there, and a line I can't cross with Uncle Marvin. And if you look at Kanan's relationship with Lou, it's more of a friendship relationship. And I know everybody has that. You got the uncles and aunts, the one that's cool, that I can hang with, and we could kick it, we could drink. And then you got the crazy one. You like, yeah, I'm not fucking with him at all, because he can still snap and try to fuck me up if I say something out my mouth completely wrong. Like that. I love that dynamic when you see it played out this way, because again, it shows just one, how close this family is, and just how everyone still plays their part and plays their role.
Yep.
And this was just a scene to highlight it more than anything else. Let's go back quickly to a scene that happened before this one, and that was Lou getting picked up at the bar by the same crooked cops that have been harassing Rock's business. I asked before early in the season when I said, these crooked cops, couldn't Rock just call Howard to help take care of them? And here we got them picking up Lou for Howard. Like, so this whole time, Rock could have just used Howard to make sure that they didn't bother her anymore.
Or think a little deeper here. Or did Howard have anything to do with what was happening with Rock's business and why?
Wow. That could be it. Damn, I did not think about that. But that damn sure could be it.
Yeah.
That's something to think about.
Yeah.
The next couple things we already talked about, Juke and the task force. We already talked about Howard once he picks up Lou. Here, the only thing to talk about is Lou finally put it together that Howard was the cop that Rock was
inside
giving all the inside information about, including the one who told them that Scrap was a snitch and what led to them dying. Here is just another great scene by Malcolm as you just see just how big Lou Eyes gets when he put it together that you're the one responsible for Scrap dying. Like, all I ask is, what do you think about this revelation being revealed here to Lou and his response to it being revealed? Because at that point, he didn't give a fuck about anybody. He said, I can tell everything because I know who you are.
Yeah, I guess there was a slight possibility that you may have thought that Howard was going to pull the trigger on him, which would have been definitely a very interesting development going forward. I don't even know where the story would be if that's the case, because that literally shifts everything. Hell, this been a finale. Might have thought that was absolutely going to happen, but I got to go back to my time in the game here. Now, as I referenced earlier about my 21 being 21 on the Four Loko, I can say from much great experience and by a great track record of being under the influence at times, I have never put anything together. I have only done anything but sleep afterwards. The fact that my man is fried rice right now and he out here playing First 48 is wild to me. My man was like, you know what? I know I've been fried all day, but I just put this case together real quick. This cold case that we had, I done figured it out. Like, my bad is it was just wild to me that it happened that way. But all seriousness, it just tells you what was on the front of his focal. It's Scrap.
That's it. He's been obsessed with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what helps.
So it's he killed his mother.
If you that intoxicated and you are obsessed about something, I think your mind moves towards that direction. I know when I was young and drinking, or when I was in my possibly early part of my 30s and drinking, I was single-mindedly focused on one thing. And I put a lot of things together to get that one thing I wanted to get. So
well, that's not a mystery of what that is. Or is it a mystery once you get it? But I can tell you one thing. My man out here, John washed this whole thing where he was just like, you know what? Now you all been trying to figure out who was behind this murder here. We need America's help. We got a call from Lou Thomas coming in. Yeah.
Not him like Nino Brown on the stand. Wasn't me. He's the educated nigga in the suit.
For real.
Oh man. But next up, we get Marvin visiting Gerald in the hospital. Here, Gerald being a crackhead or a junkie or whatever you want to call him. Here we find out that one of his daughters drowned in the tub because he was getting high and left her there. But in the midst of this tragedy, in the midst of his grief, he tells Marvin everything.
Yeah.
That one, I've been talking to the task force. Two, they're looking for information on you. Tells Marvin, I didn't tell him anything because you've not told me anything. but they've been pressing me out, and it was between me going to jail and losing my kids or me giving up you. And here Marvin lays down everything to Gerald and tells him, you are extremely selfish. Your daughter died because of you being selfish. And basically, you ruined this friendship. What did you think about this scene here between Marvin and Gerald? One, as everything is just laid out for both of them too, but also the way Gerald reacts once Marvin's finished talking. Did you think that this would lead to exactly what happened with him at the end?
Man, Marvin had a long day of folks confessing under the influence. One way or another. Some of them influence. It's sad, man, because although it's never really been built an emotional establishment with the viewers to Gerald, he was still a character that you kind of by the wayside still wanted to see win. I mean, he's getting his life together. Him and Marvin are becoming best friends, talk about the daughters, and I know he's been doing some shady shit, and we know he's working with the feds. And as I mentioned, there could have been some benefit to that because he might be able to get some inside information, give it to Marvin. But like this just went the very almost traditional way. Like he was never going to get clean, and it was something was going to come to sacrifice that. Whether it's going to be him, whether it's going to be his daughters, because we just kept highlighting his daughters all the time. We knew it was going to be something, and we got all of it within 5 minutes. That his daughter drowning, which is tragic, by the way. And thank God they didn't make that like a thing. I think it would have been completely unnecessary to have to see that just have that. Because it's so tragic because these things legitimately happen like every other day. So, but yeah, and then the friendship that been established all this time, and Marvin being there for him, and been nothing but A1
for the girls.
Yeah, it's just sad to see Gerald go down like that, and while he was completely truthful that like he's working and what happened he didn't do anything for him. Marvin's reaction is completely appropriate because he knows the game, and that's why Marvin ain't telling him anything, because even though they are friends, he still knows better.
Need to keep things to the chest. Yep,
exactly. So it did play out exactly how I thought it was going to play out, especially when he defriended him. He took him out of his top 8. And he says, be gone. And after that, my man said, there's only one other way to handle what got me in this situation in the first place. And every account got him in this situation in the first place. There's only one way to solve this. Give me another. And well, he got another one, all right, for the last time. So goodbye, Gerald. It's been a good ride. or has it?
Oh no, I'm pretty sure he went out very happy. I ain't never met a crackhead overdose and he was sad. Like, when that fentanyl hits you just beforehand, you probably the highest and the best feeling in the world, and then your heart stops. But the next two things we already talked about, and part of it was, I think the first one was Juke being let go after Juke still being questioned, and then that followed up by Rock picking up Lou and Howard telling her everything that he was trying to put off on Marvin. But the following thing is when we do see that Gerald's overdose, and we see how this blows up the case for the task force. The only question I have here is, Gerald told them nothing at all. Why did it seem like their whole case fell apart once he overdosed?
Let me ask you a question. If he's a CI, doesn't that look bad on them for that happening to him?
I mean, but he's a junkie CI. Like, they're going to clearly overdose.
But you're still supposed to have him under your protection. If I believe that's how the agreement works, or how the...
It would be protection if he was threatened by Marvin. But it's not protection, because I think that's why they pinpoint when they get there, like, could it have been something dirty? And they're like, nope, he just overdosed. Like, he shot his own veins up. Like, there's nothing nefarious here. I think it looks worse on them that his daughter drowned, because then the question becomes, why didn't you pull him in before this tragedy could happen? You had him under surveillance. You caught him doing drugs.
Yeah.
And now, because you wanted to use him for a different purpose, We have a dead kid on our hands.
Yeah.
Like, I think that was way worse than him overdosing.
Yeah, matter of fact, yeah, you're right. After that, the first of all, a complete investigation of the daughter dying. We know who's at fault.
Yep.
My man's just in the lobby.
Yep.
He's just in the lobby. You already know what time it was. It easily should have been able. How was your matter of fact? This is weird. This is really weird. That him being under surveillance and him still having primary custody of his daughters.
That should have been the first thing they did, was pull them away from him.
Yeah.
And because they didn't, I think that's what's gonna weigh the worst on that task force, is that you allowed him to keep them girls, and now one of them is dead.
You were able to pull him in as a CI by the way of what you had got him on, right? And they threatened to take the daughters away from you because they had something legitimate on you. So you use him instead of doing what was the right thing to do. So the daughter's death is actually on the task force hands.
Yep.
They'll never go that deep into the story, but that's what it is.
Hey,
that's what it is.
I'm not going to say they won't, because I think that it could lead that, because clearly they were very concerned that he was dead. Clearly they went to arrest him because the daughter died. Like, they didn't even give a fuck about the case at that point. They're like, nah, you got to go to jail.
That's true.
At this point, we gotta what is it? Play damage control here.
Yeah.
Because we know where this is gonna go back to. Because in the end, all it's gonna be is you got him on books as a CI because you caught him doing drugs. He has children. You didn't put two and two together that this could possibly happen.
Right.
And because you didn't, now we got to play this properly, and now all of you are in trouble. So again, that's going to be an interesting dynamic when we see how this weighs on the task force moving forward. Next up is just Marvin arriving to help Rock with Lou. Here again is Lou sees his big brother, and he is terrified. As you said, he put two and two together with Howard. He clearly put something together else with Rock, because he's whooping down. She gonna kill me, and she gonna kill me right now, as he's begging to his big brother. Nothing else to talk about here. It's just that this is a nice, funny scene between the siblings as he is paranoid and begging Marvin to save him from Rock.
Yep.
But next up is Captain Baptiste and the task force as they bring in Howard to confront him about everything that Captain Burke told them. And in this scene, we see Howard flip everything back on Captain Baptiste, bringing up the reason I didn't tell you about any of this stuff, because you said we didn't need the bad pressure anymore. So I pushed everything so we wouldn't have this problem anymore. Now here, it clearly shows that Captain Baptiste is buying into Howard. But if you pay attention, it clearly shows the task force is not buying an ounce of Howard saying this.
And honestly,
what do you think about this scene?
Honestly, I mean, like, I sort of agree with you, and I sort of don't. I also feel like it's so, like, Captain Baptiste has no, I guess he almost at a point of, like, I don't know what to do at this point now, because at a point you're like, yeah, I'm glad you did that, because that's exactly what we need. The other part's like, oh shoot, how does this may fall back on me? So I definitely felt more sense of a conflict with Baptiste and what was Howard's response to everything. But certainly, as you mentioned, the task force wasn't buying any of this, and they're just here to point the fingers at everybody. So I would imagine that internal affairs will be doing and conducting more interviews up to the captain's level about what's happening with this.
And this is a key scene again when we talk about, it looks like this is the downfall of Howard.
Yeah.
With what happened with Gerald and a dead kid on their hands, if you don't think they're going to try to push all of that back on Howard and say, hey, yes, he overdosed. Yes, we lost a kid. But guess what? We discovered a dirty cop who's been connected with these drug dealers. He's been doing all of this. I think down to the point that they're going to make it sound like at least that Howard set up his own shooting to draw them off of him. I think they're going to completely set this up, and they're going to completely lay everything at Howard's feet, because that's just the best way to get out of this situation. Next up is Snaps, Pop, Ronnie meeting with Kanan. Here, the interesting part is they tell them Rock is messing with our business and she needs to be handled. The way this whole episode played out about the connection of family, and about even when they're mad at each other, It's certain lines they won't cross. What did you think about them laying their cards on the table here to Kanan and basically telling Kanan, we need you to get rid of your mother?
Yeah, it ain't happening. It ain't happening. Yeah, I don't know how, but I definitely think he's going to end up siding with his mom overall.
Oh,
I think
definitely.
there's a loyalty to the family, and while his story seems less convincing of everybody else in terms of that alignment, I think that's going to be the shock factor going forward. And will Ronnie be the first body that Kanan? I'm sorry, will Ronnie be the second body that
Yeah.
Kanan catches? Who knows? But yeah, I think this is foreshadowing, because if you just don't pay attention to the series and you just think that this is all about people killing people for no syndical reason, then fine. Then you're gonna say, oh well, Kanan's gonna kill Rock. No way. Kanan's not gonna kill Rock. Pop snaps. It's only Ronnie at this rate. It's only Ronnie I see. At least that's how I see it. I don't see Pops and Snap being able to be touched in a way that won't have major ramifications. And I think there's still so much more to do with the mob and even the Colombians that I don't know. But either way, yeah, I see him realigning with his mother going forward. And then y'all let us know in the comments. I think this is a good point of y'all making some really good predictions and going forward in terms of what happens with Rock, as they said she needs to be handled. But it's just a matter of what is it going to look like for Snaps and Pop and Ronnie, because Ronnie's obviously wants it to happen with no brain power behind it. But Snaps and Pop going to have a plan, and I think that plan, maybe them actually calculating that Kanan will not actually be a catalyst to making this happen. So will they have something else as a backup, and will that backup be unleashing Ronnie fully to do so? So will Ronnie go after Rock, Kanan protect her, or something of that sort? Hell, I'll take that. Kanan don't step up and do it, but Juke does. Let's see Juke catch a body.
That's a good point there. And we already talked about the end of the episode, which was the long ride home, as I call it. So, what are your final thoughts on episode 9 and predictions for episode 10?
Yeah, good episode. Definitely enjoyed it. But this is the kind of thing forward about the predictions. I think Lou won't be killed. I think Lou will definitely be sent away, as I mentioned earlier. Seeing Symphony in Baltimore makes sense. But it's going to be a big thing for the finale, is that I think we have tend to forget something else we have been speculating, and that's Unique has not died. Will he reemerge? Has he already been lurking in the shadows? His baby mom has been very much as if she's been in the know, absent for sure as a character. But she had already known that he's still alive. We have not had the mafia involved since. So Stefano, will there be something with him? Had the Colombians. And also, folks, let's not forget that Lou did not also catch a body from killing what's the face's mom, Scrap's mom. So him being sent away just makes a lot of sense. And again, as I mentioned, Rock may be very irritated with Lou, but as she mentioned, like about Marvin, it's her brother, not giving up her brother as a scapegoat. I can't see her wanting to kill her brother, because that's what everybody is saying what needs to happen. She's just going to just disappear him, and hopefully he gets himself together. And also maybe him being disappeared also is just best for not only for his own well-being, but also too, it just doesn't present an opportunity for him to have to come back. So we'll see. That's my thoughts, at least on the mind scale. I'm ready to get into next week's episode. It's going to be crazy. That's the big thing. Next week going to be crazy, folks. Exactly. It's going to be crazy.
Just don't worry about it. Mine's is simple here. Howard's going to go down for everything, because I think that's the way this is setting up to be. Kanan is either going to kill Ronnie or set up Ronnie to be killed by his mother. It's going to be one of the two. I just don't know yet how that's going to fully play out. Lou is going to go to some rehab center at a hospital, and there he's going to run into Unique, who possibly has amnesia or something and cannot remember who he is because of the beating he took to his head. But Lou's going to know who he is, and Lou is going to bring that up to them, that he knows that Unique is still alive. I think that's the way this is all going to play out here. I don't think we're going to get a play on Snaps and Pop at all in the next episode, but I think it's going to be Rock asserting herself over them in some kind of way and getting deeply involved in their business. And she's going to use her connection to Stefano to do it. That's my predictions of it. So, again, tune in next week as we're going, damn it, live at 1 o'clock in the morning to give you our recap review of episode 10. Jesus
episode
Christ.
10, Made You Look, written by Sasha Penn and Albert Menace, and directed by Eve Rivera. So yeah, next week.
You already know what it is.
1 a.m.
If Eve is directing it, you kind of know when we're getting here. And again, we're going to be here the whole night with y'all to discuss that episode. So like, comment, subscribe, hit that little bell thingy so it let y'all know when we're going live. This has been another recap review of Raising Kanan. Again, this is episode 9. Well, what is it called again? Damn it.
Home to Roast.
That's why I don't. Roast is an odd word to put. Thank God. Because I'm like, wait a minute, home to roast.
Yeah.
Way to put that.
Yeah, home to roost. Yeah.
Hey, check y'all out next week. Peace, people.
Reckonings.